What's up guys, Friday afternoon and we're loading up. Now today, if Steve will stop mucking around with the bike. Steve?
Sorry, my bad. At least you went for a different colour on the bike than your normal car.
Black bike, black truck. That was not meant to happen, by the way. Steve, don't touch it. Don't even look at it. Today, I'm going to run you through, this is going to be a long one today. Today I'm going to run you through, how would I put this? Something that I've learnt over the past sort of 5 years of Patriot campers. Battery management when you're touring. Now when it comes to your camper trailer, your caravan, your touring truck, everybody's got one of these, at least one of these inside of their touring vehicle, and this is the heart, one of the foundations of what's going to keep you off the grid for a long time. This battery's actually been sitting in the corner here for a long period of time now. We detonated this battery, we overheated it a while ago. It's actually used as a doorstop, but this is going to set the basis of me running you through today what I think is the ultimate, no exceptions given, way to control your battery loads and your battery charges while you're in a remote location. When I first started Patriot Campers, it needs to be said, there's a bit of a joke running inside the factory about my electrical capacity. I'm not an electrical person. I don't understand it. I don't want to know about it. Ohms, amps, voltage. I just want to know how much battery I've got left, and I want to know how much charge I'm putting in there. I want the easiest way of doing it. I went down to our local supplier when I built Patriot Camper #1, and I said, I'm building a camper trailer. I need to power the batteries. I need to get load out of the batteries. Can you run me through all of the gear that I need to put into this camper trailer to keep me off the grid? And I'm going to run you through, we're going to do a little, Steve's still there in the corner. We're going to do a little recap on what actually happened that day. And this is what the guy actually put up on the counter at our local electrical supplier. So Steve, start throwing me all the gear that you need to put into a camper trailer or a touring truck. Run me through it.
So BC-DC?
BC-DC, so this is your DC to DC charge, so off your Anderson plug of your car. And all of this is running back into the battery, what I'm about to show you.
Solar reg.
Solar regulator, so if you want to run a solar input, you need one of these. You need a regulator to regulate the solar panel and put it into the battery.
You've got to know your voltage.
Voltage, so your voltage, we'll run through that a little bit later, but you need some sort of voltage gauge so you know exactly how many volts are left inside your battery.
Isolator.
Isolator, so this is an SBI, this is an isolator. If you're running dual batteries, this will disconnect one battery once it gets to a certain voltage to ensure that you're not draining both batteries. These are really important.
240 charger.
240 volt charger. There's so many different 240 volt chargers on the market. They go from, you can get trickle chargers from 1 amp up to about sort of 50 amps now, something like that.
Yeah, a bit higher.
Bit higher.
Yeah.
The higher the amperage that you get, the faster your battery's going to charge. You need one of them so you can plug into mains power. So that's going to give you your mains power charge. So you definitely need one of them.
Switches.
You need a switch panel. These ones here are fused. They've got the fuses inbuilt, but if you don't have the fuses inbuilt, you need a fuse. Thank you, Steve. You need a fuse block to go with them. So you need switches to turn everything on and off, your loads, and obviously fuses to ensure that you don't overload the circuit.
You got relays.
Relays, so you need relays as well in the circuit.
You need a circuit breaker.
You need a circuit breaker. Again, if you overload the circuit, this one here is, you can get auto resets or you get a manual reset one like this one. When you get too much load on the circuit, it'll pop here instead of frying something or melting a wire and starting a fire like what happened in one of my trucks recently. But that wasn't you, was it?
That wasn't me.
No, that wasn't you. So you need that. What else do you need?
Wiring.
Wiring. So you need tons and tons and tons of this stuff to run all this gear, heaps of it. And actually, as far as cost goes as well, that's something that a lot of people don't factor in. There's a lot of cost when you go with right sort of diameter cable and good quality cable and fittings. So this is something else that you need as well. Okay, so come over here, Steve. Run us through it. Because I can give you the sales spiel on what everything does, but the actual reality of installing all of this gear,
You leave it to everyone else.
I'd leave it. That's what I pay you for, Steve. Okay, run us through it. So all of this gear connected together. Let's talk about fitting time. How long would it take to wire all of this? Let's talk about a Land Cruiser. Let's talk about putting all of this gear into a truck, all these separate components. How long would it take to fit all this stuff out?
All this stuff, you're probably looking at a day to
Yep.
2 days to fit properly.
Yep.
So mount it efficiently, get all the wires run,
Yep.
everything just working perfectly.
Stuff in the right location, finding places to put it all,
Keeping
hiding
it
it
away
under
from
dashes.
the hot sources, so
Yep.
turbo, exhaust,
Yep.
keeping everything right where it should be.
We've got a solution to all of this. I'll get to that in 1 second. I'll run you through from a usability point of view what's wrong with doing an install like this. And look, I shouldn't say that. What's wrong with it? Why there's a better way of doing an install like this. Now, obviously, if you're building your own rig at home on the weekends, you know, some people, obviously, if you've got budget constraints, you might do a little bit at one stage. You might start with a 240 volt charger, then you might add solar later on, then you might add a DC to DC. And if that's the way that you're building your rig, well, that's the way to do it. But like I said, there's a better solution. So this is what I got presented to me when I was designing the first X1. And I looked at this and my brain just went, no, I'm not dealing with that. I said to the guy, the rep at the counter at the time, I said, there's got to be a better solution. And he goes, well, actually there is a better solution, but not many people put these things into camper trailers. Now this is going back 5 years ago, and it wasn't a very common thing, but what he did give me, I'll show you right now. Let's clear this bench off and get out the good stuff. All right, so this is it. Everything that I just showed you, that whole lot of gear that was just covering the bench, is all inside this box. Now we're not going to do an unboxing video, or we might just put a really cool track to this and we'll do a real quick unboxing video. Ta-da! Red Arc Manager 30, BMS 30. Now, BMS stands for Battery Management System, and the reason it's called a 30, this has a 30 amp inbuilt charger. Let's quickly run through what's inside the box. I'm not going to pull all of these components out. You got a faceplate. There's a backing plate there for the faceplate, so that just clicks straight in. You've got your battery shunt. What does the shunt do?
So that goes to the battery.
Yep.
All your other earths go to the other side of the shunt.
Yep.
And it measures how much draw through the earth system it's got.
Right, okay. We'll get to that in a minute. That'll make sense here in a minute. Again, from the install side, that's why I brought Steve in. From the usability side, I'll show you why that's so important. The other thing that you've got on there is a battery temperature sensor. Now, that battery that I just had up on here before, that one overheated and we cooked it. Why is it so important to keep a battery at the right temperature?
If your battery overheats, you know, it's a liquid inside.
Yep.
Liquid boils.
Yep.
It's all different plates.
Yep.
If it boils too much, you're gonna take current out of it. The lifespan is gonna be greatly diminished.
And it smells like egg.
It's terrible.
It smells like rotten egg.
It's explosive.
Yep. All right, the other thing we've got in here is like an RJ45 connector, which goes between the BMS and the faceplate. I know that because I've disconnected one of them before. It'll do work, Steve. In here, you've got your 240 volt charger. So that's your 240 volt input with your standard sort of kettle style house appliance plug that goes into the back of the BMS. You've got some sort of cable connectors here.
Yeah, that goes into the BMS.
Right. Oh, so this is where you connect all the cables into, and that's the connection straight into the BMS. Is that right? I'm learning something here too. And is that to plug your telephone in?
Yeah.
Right.
I'd just like to point out though, I thought we weren't unboxing all this.
No, well, I got excited. There's some cool stuff. That's to run a slave. So in all of my builds, I'll run a faceplate up at the front in the cab so I can see what's going on whilst I'm driving. I can see all my charge, my solar coming in from my roof, and obviously my 12 volt off my alternator. And then I'll run another faceplate in a more camping style location. So while we're camping and we're set up, we can see what's going on. So that's everything that's inside the box. Let's push all that to the side. When you're dealing with electrical systems or you're dealing with complex systems, one of the big considerations that you've got to make is the support that comes with those products. Obviously, warranty is one side. Warranty, they have a world-class warranty facility as well. Really no questions asked sort of changeover. But more importantly, for someone who's electrically stupid like me, when the little things go wrong, you can get somebody on the phone. Australian-made products, tried and tested here in Australia for all of our sort of situations. They don't recommend putting the BMSs into marine applications. I do it. I have them fitted in all of my boats. So slapping around out in the ocean, corrugated roads, dusty conditions, hot environments, over in the freezing cold of Colorado. I've tested them in all environments and never had an issue. Okay, so inside this unit, Steve, what's going on? What's it doing?
So this is basically your DC DC charger.
Yep, so running from Anderson plug off your car into your trailer, or off your alternator straight into your house batteries in your car. Yep.
This is your solar regulator.
Yep.
Which is always green, so it's going to pull from the solar first.
Yep.
Before it starts draining your battery.
Yep.
Or any battery.
Yep.
This will suit any type of battery.
So lithium,
AGM,
and lead acid. So any of those battery profiles. Lithium's getting more and more popular now. Lithium, look, we won't go into that in this video, but lithium, definitely take a look at what lithium's doing, because lithium, once you've used it, you find it hard to go back. Really, really big question that we get from our customers here, and I'll drop it into this video. You have to run unregulated solar power into a BMS. So if you've got a regulator on your solar panel, take that regulator off and run raw solar power inside this, because it already has a regulator built in. Compact unit, easy install.
It is, it's, you know, you saw what we had here, all of that in this.
All of that gear replaced into this. So that being said, I think that takes you through what the unit's all about, and I will probably show you what it's done. I'll let Steve get back to playing with the Indian. You can look at it now.
I can touch it?
You want one, don't you?
I do.
I want one too. I've got to give that one back. All right, so now we've got all the technical stuff out of the way. I'm going to show you through the faceplate. And the faceplate is realistically, getting back to what I said at the start, it's all you need to worry about when you go with the Red Arc Manager 30. You don't need to understand electronic systems. The simplicity of it is the main reason that I put it in all the Patriot Campers products and now all of our Super Tourers. Like we mentioned before, we have two faceplates in the black truck. So this is actually our main faceplate at the back here, close to the system. Then we've got a slave plate up the front where I'm driving. That's where I'm going to show you through how the system works. But I want to show you through a very, very basic install. So inside here, I'm running a lithium battery. I'm running a Revolution 100 amp hour lithium. You can see mounted in behind the lithium is the actual BMS unit. One single unit, the shunt that we explained to you before is mounted just above that unit, and all of the cables are all connected into there. I'm running a 1000 watt Red Arc inverter in this truck, which again runs through the BMS. I've got a circuit breaker up there for the inverter. I've got a circuit breaker there for the BMS, and then I've got a main circuit breaker as well. I've got 12 volt USB ports. I've got my fuses mounted in here for my switches. These are my switches for my LEDs and switches all the way around the canopy. I've got here another USB. This is my solar input. I've got solar panels up onto the roof. And like we said before, the Red Arc system is smart enough that it can accept all three modes of charge at one time, but it'll always pick the greenest source first. So it'll always take from solar first, then it'll go to the DC to DC charge, and then it'll revert to a 240 volt charge. So say for example, if you're plugged into mains power at a caravan park and your solar panel is getting full energy, it'll switch off the 240, so it's not drawing any 240 volt. It'll only use solar. Nighttime falls, it switches from solar automatically over to the 240 volt. Pretty clever system. Again, with those profiles of charge, it'll suit any type of battery, and the different profiles of charge is set up for the different rates that different batteries charge at to ensure that you extend the life of your battery. So that's a basic setup that we put in the Super Tourers. The setup is almost identical in the camper trailers. It's just laid out a little bit different. Let's get into the fun stuff, and I'll show you right through the control panel and the functionality, how it all works. Come up the front of the truck. All right, into the cockpit of the black truck. So, as I've mentioned in previous videos in the past, I like to keep everything where it needs to be, everything easily accessible, and all the most important gear at my fingertips, which is why in all of my touring rigs, I mount a slave faceplate at the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run you through the basic fundamentals and some of the advanced features that you might use or you might want to know exist. But like I mentioned earlier, the ease of the unit, the 4 main screens that you see is all you really need, and you don't need to know anything about power because the system will tell you everything that you need. So your charging logs are important if you want to know, say you had something go wrong, you've drawn excessive power, or you want to know where you've charged last. That date and time has got a functionality. It's controlling all the logs so you can see exactly what's going on. If you push down on the menu, the first screen that you get to, or this is really your home screen, I'd call it, This is the most intuitive screen there with the whole of the system. It's showing me currently right now I have 91% charge in my battery. So I've set the profile of my battery. The system knows I have a 100 amp hour lithium. Depending on how many batteries that you put into your vehicle or your camper trailer, you tell the system when you do the first initial setup. So you say, I've got 420 amp hour batteries, system then knows I've got 480 amp hours. Now, it has a load disconnect built into the system as well. So you can adjust that load disconnect. So when you get down to a certain voltage, I think we normally set ours around sort of 10.5 volts, which is pretty low. So we're getting as much power draw as we can. That the system will automatically disconnect. And currently, I've turned the fridge on and I've turned all the lights on just so I can show you how the system works. It's saying with my current power draw, I have 11 hours left until flat. So the fridge was hot, so now the compressor's kicked in on full, and I have all the lights running. I know with the current consumption, there's 11 hours of battery charge left. Now, where that's going to come in handy, obviously, if you're out on a trip, you don't have a solar panel, you don't have a generator, you've got no means of charging your system, you can really monitor what your power usage is. If you say, I'm going to stay here for another couple of days, I've got to watch my power, as you start turning devices off, the system will start counting up and say, well, now you've got 14 hours until flat, 20 hours, 24 hours a day, 7 days, whatever it is, so you can monitor all of your charge. And that's as simple as it gets. That's all you need to know. You don't need to know the volts. You don't need to know your amp hours. You don't need to know anything else about your battery or your electrical system. This thing will just tell you, mate, with what you're using, you got 14 hours left. Turn some stuff off. Really that simple. Going through into the next menu, I can see all of my input statuses. So at the top, I've got my solar input. I've got my my Anderson plug input underneath that, and 240 at the bottom. So I can see all of my sources of charge that are coming into the system. So like I said before, it'll always choose solar first. Really handy screen. Now, if I go down to the next one, I've got all of my input and, well, actually this is all the output statuses. So what it's showing me here is I've got no power going into my BMS, so I have no state of charge going into my BMS. The little light bulb feature is telling me what all of my accessories are drawing. Currently, I'm drawing 7.8 amps. And then underneath, you've got your battery. So what's currently being taken out of your battery usually matches what your accessories are, 7.8 amps. But let's say, for example, that you don't have something connected through the BMS. Let's say you've got something hardwired directly to the battery. That's where you're going to see a variation. You might see that you've got 7 amps coming out of all of your accessories that are running through the BMS, but your battery's drawing 10 or 12 amps. So even if you don't have something connected through the BMS and running through this functionality, this is still going to tell you that you're drawing power somewhere else. Going down to the next menu, I have the charging status. At the moment, stage is saying no charge, but there's different modes of charge that go into the BMS and controlling your battery. I'm not going to go into that. I'm not the technical guy to really explain how all of that works, but what I can tell you is it'll control the profiles of whatever particular battery you have and the state that that battery's in. If the battery's dead flat, if it's full, and this is where you can also select a storage mode. So like we discussed earlier with Steve, if you put your trailer or your truck into storage and you want to disconnect all of the loads and maintain your battery, you put it into storage mode and it'll disconnect everything off the battery. Now with the Manager 30, to get it out of storage mode, it needs a 240 volt source connected back to it, which is handy as well when the kids are playing around with stuff in the garage, or your mates, people that you don't want touching your gear and turn it on and seeing your battery flat. You need to know that you need to plug it back into 240 to get it back on. Voltage at the moment, it's telling me my battery's got 13.1 volts in it at the moment, and my battery temperature is 30 degrees, which is something else that you should monitor. So that's it for your main menus. In the background, you've got an advanced menu. So if you hold the up and down button, this is where you actually set your battery setup. So when you first install your BMS, or your installer installs your BMS, this is where he'll select what type of battery and how many amp hours that you have in those batteries. Scrolling down through there, remote settings. So if you're running a remote like I am, you can modify those settings. You've got some advanced settings in here. I don't really play around in here, but there are a couple of things. Max charge current you can set through there, but you can also, one thing that you will use low state of charge alarm. So you can set in here the voltage that you want to be notified when you get below. So say for example, if you're power hungry or you get a little bit stressed out by getting low on power, like I know some of my friends do, you can put it up to say 13 volts. It'll sound an alarm at 13 volts. You need to plug in. Again, really, really simple. Low voltage alarm, basically the same thing. Low disconnect, so you can adjust your load disconnect based on voltage as well. So if you want your load disconnect, so this is set at 11 volts. So if you want to up that or you want to go a little bit lower, I'd be happy to go a little bit lower, 10.5, 10 volts possibly. You can set that disconnect there. Worth noting, 24 volt and 12 volt systems it works on as well, so you can set up a DC input trigger. So if you want to run one of these systems in a prime mover, a truck, something that you're running on 24 volts, the BMS will handle 24 volt capability as well. All right guys, so there you have it. There's my run through on the Red Arc Manager 30, the only power management system that we use here at Patriot Campers, and for these very good reasons, but above all else, the simplicity of the system. It just works, keeps everything neat. That's it. We're going to finish loading up and we're out of here.